The sky split open that night as if the heavens themselves were at war. Lightning cracked against the desert ridges, and the rain came in sheets so heavy the earth seemed to drown beneath it. Each drop slapped against the dust, raising the smell of clay and cedar until the air itself felt like a storm one could breathe. Through that storm ran a woman, her dark hair plastered against her face, her steps uneven, her hand pressed against the swell of her belly. Her name was Boldest, a widow of the Apache, a warrior who had seen battle, who had lost more than the storm could ever steal. Her lungs burned, her legs trembled, yet she pressed on, because behind her trailed the echoes of boots and the memory of fire. She stumbled once, fell to her knees in the mud, her breath breaking like glass. For a moment she thought the earth might swallow her whole and end the torment. But then, through the curtain of rain, she saw it, a cabin standing alone against the night, rough-hewn timber with smoke curling faintly from the chimney, light flickering in the window. A place of shelter, or perhaps a place of danger. Her people told stories of the white men who lived in such cabins, men who carried steel and whiskey, men whose hearts were as cold as their guns. Yet the child within her kicked, and the whisper of new life gave her no choice. She staggered to her feet, dragging her body forward, each step heavier than the last. When she reached the door she pounded with her fists, wood biting her skin. Her voice broke the thunder. "Cowboy! Will you let me bring my child into this world under your roof?" The words came out raw, torn from a throat that had shouted war cries and funeral songs, but never such a plea. Inside, the door creaked open. A shadow filled the frame, tall and broad, a figure carved from years of hard living. Jesse Buckhorn stood there, lantern in hand, his shoulders nearly as wide as the door itself. His face was cut by the years, sunburned skin, a beard of dark stubble, eyes that held the memory of too many graves. He looked down at the woman before him, soaked through, trembling, her hands clinging to her stomach as though she could shield the unborn from the storm. For a long breath, he did not speak. The old hatred pressed against him, Apache. The very name stirred ghosts. He had fought them, lost friends to them, buried men because of them. He had sworn never to trust one. And yet, this was not a warrior with a rifle in hand. This was a woman breaking before him, her strength frayed, her life balanced between storm and silence. His jaw clenched as he weighed the past against the living moment. Would he shut the door and send her back into the night, or open it and let fate enter his cabin? Her knees buckled. Without thought, Jesse reached forward and caught her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected, her body hot with fever, her breath shallow. He lifted her across the threshold, the door slamming shut against the wind. For a moment the storm outside roared louder, as if protesting his choice. He laid her gently near the fire, the crackling warmth painting her face in shades of gold and shadow. She looked at him through half-closed eyes, suspicion mingled with relief. Jesse moved quietly, his steps heavy against the wooden floor. He fetched a wool blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. He poured water into a tin cup, lifting it to her lips with hands rough from years of rope and rifle, yet steady as though they had always been meant for such a task. She drank greedily, the water spilling down her chin, and when she finished, her gaze lingered on him longer than before. No words of gratitude came. She was a warrior. Gratitude did not come easily. Yet in the quiet, Jesse felt the room shift. The cabin that had long been a place of solitude now held the weight of another soul, and in her silence he heard a kind of trust unspoken. He rose, pacing to the window. Through the sheets of rain, faint lights glimmered in the distance, torches moving steadily. His stomach hardened. Soldiers. They were hunting. Not for him, never for him, but for the woman now lying beneath his roof. If they found her here, he would be branded a traitor, a man who sheltered the enemy. And yet when he turned back, he saw not an enemy but a mother-to-be, curled close to his fire, lips whispering words in her tongue he could not understand. He wondered if she prayed for life, for strength, or simply for mercy. Jesse sat back down, pulling the chair closer to her. He dipped a rag in cool water and pressed it against her brow. She flinched, then stilled, eyes watching him with the wariness of one who had been taught to see danger in every gesture. He said nothing, only held the cloth there until her breathing steadied. The firelight danced across her cheekbones, across the scars that spoke of battles survived, across the weariness that spoke of battles lost. The storm deepened. Lightning cast the room into stark white, thunder rolled so loud the walls shook. Jesse's hand lingered a moment too long, and he felt her warmth beneath the cloth, the steady beat of life within her. Something stirred in him, not desire, not yet, but a fragile remembrance of tenderness, of how it felt to care for someone other than himself. He pulled back quickly, unsettled by the ache that followed. Outside, the sound of horses cut through the rain. Jesse's body stiffened. He rose, loading the shotgun with practiced hands, the metal clicks sharp against the storm's rhythm. His eyes flicked to Boldest. She was watching him now, eyes wide, hand pressed tighter against her belly. She knew, as he knew, that the world had not forgotten her. Danger was coming, and the cabin would soon be tested. Jesse moved to the door, his massive frame blocking the light from the fire. He breathed deep, the smell of rain and gunpowder already in his mind. If he gave her up, he would be safe. The soldiers would leave him alone, perhaps even praise him. But if he kept her, if he stood against them, he would lose the last of his ties to the world he once knew. He looked back once more. Boldest lay there, trembling, but not with fear. With pain. Her body seized, her breath caught in her throat. She cried out, low and raw, her hand clutching at the blanket. It was not the soldiers that had come for her now, it was birth. In that instant Jesse understood. He set the shotgun aside and rushed to her, kneeling at her side. She gasped, sweat beading her brow, eyes fierce even in agony. "The child, it is coming," she whispered, voice breaking. He nodded, words failing him. He fetched water, clean cloths, whatever his cabin could offer. He held her hand rough against her delicate fingers, and whispered words he never thought he would say. "Breathe, warrior, you are stronger than the storm." Outside, the soldiers' torches drew closer, their shouts lost beneath thunder. Jesse heard them, but he did not move from her side. Between contractions he would rise, shotgun in hand, firing into the night to keep them back. Then, heart pounding, he would return to her, wiping sweat from her face, holding her through the waves of pain. The hours stretched like years. Each cry of hers broke something in him. Each squeeze of her hand reminded him that strength was not always measured by how many men one could fell, but by how long one could endure. At last, a new sound pierced the storm, the sharp, beautiful cry of a newborn. Jesse froze, the gun slipping from his hand. He turned, breath caught in his chest. Boldest lay exhausted, tears streaming down her cheeks, a tiny life wrapped in her arms. The child's cry was thin but fierce, as if announcing its will to survive. Jesse staggered closer, bloodied from his fight, his chest heaving. He dropped to his knees before her, the giant brought low by the smallest of miracles. Boldest looked up at him, eyes shimmering with something softer than he had ever known. "You fought not just for me," she whispered, her voice a trembling melody, "but for us." The storm outside began to quiet, the rain easing to a gentle patter. The torches faded into the distance, the soldiers retreating into the night. Within the cabin, silence grew, broken only by the steady breaths of mother, child, and the cowboy who had chosen compassion over hatred. Jesse reached out, his hand trembling as it brushed the infant's tiny fingers. The child gripped him, fragile but unyielding. For the first time in years, Jesse Buckhorn felt something break open in his chest, something that was not anger or grief, but hope. Boldest closed her eyes, leaning back against the blanket, exhaustion claiming her, but a faint smile touched her lips. The fire crackled, the storm drifted away, and within that small wooden cabin, two souls who should have been enemies shared a single fragile truth. That love, in its quietest form, had found them in the midst of war. And though neither spoke it aloud, Both knew the night had changed them forever. The world outside still waited with judgment, still carried its scars and hatreds, but within those walls a new story had begun, one that no storm could wash away.